felt like I was surrounded by darkness. Even though the sun was coming up, it was a great summer morning, I felt like I was standing in darkness. I felt like I had this pressure over my chest, like I couldn't breathe, like someone was standing on top of my chest.
We have interviewed hundreds of people about how they managed to move beyond their depression. In this video, we have gathered their key lessons and learnings that might be useful for you.
It was tough. It was feeling a pain that you can't touch. It's a pain you can't make go away by a band-aid or a remedy. It's pain that goes just through your whole body, and it's extremely frustrating. It's like drowning slowly. You can't really escape it. So it's not very enjoyable.
I think depression fundamentally is the absence of any energy. And I use the metaphor with a lot of my service users of car batteries. You know, if you leave all the lights on and the radio on and the heater on and everything, your battery goes flat. And if you don't have regular things that revitalise that battery, it's flat. Rather than depression being, well, there is a feeling of sadness, but actually the more severe depression is there is no feeling whatsoever. It's completely absent and void of feeling. It's more around that blankness, which people find often more disconcerting than feeling sad, because they look for an aboutness when you're feeling sad. Sometimes there isn't an about, it's just blank. When
you're depressed, you have zero confidence, you have zero belief, you have zero ambition, you have zero motivation, you're empty. It becomes this negative spiral, which also leads to the whole feeling of drowning. You don't like yourself. Why should anyone else like you? You start thinking about, who would anyone really care if I was here? Or are people just around me because they feel sorry for me, etc., etc.
A lot of mental health problems are counterintuitive in comparison to physical health problems. So physical health problems, if I break my leg, I rest and I don't use my leg magically heals, and when it's better, I can use it. And I might need a bit of rehab, a bit of physio, but I don't do anything until it's better. That's completely the opposite in mental health. In mental health, if you don't do anything till you feel better, you will never feel better. The less you do, the worse you feel. You introduce to people the concept of behaving as if you feel okay. Because as people do less, they remove or deprive themselves of the main reversal in depression, which is positive reinforcement. So positive reinforcement comes from noticing effort, comes from social interaction, comes from being around people. So if you get that depressed where you never get out of bed, you have no positive reinforcement.
It was, as I can remember, it was a very rainy day. It was, I woke up feeling just insecure, feeling like I don't want to do anything. But I had to go to school and I was bullied. And when I got home, I just felt like this is it. Like, I can't take this anymore. This has been going on for too long. If I continue going on like this, it's just gonna continue and continue and continue. And it's better for me to just leave now rather than suffer this for the rest of my life.
I think most people who are depressed will have had suicidal thoughts at some point. I think most of us have thoughts where we think, is this really worth it? Is this what life really is? I think that's actually perfectly normal for when you have really tricky periods in your life. The difference is the quality of that and how all-consuming it becomes. And then when there's I'd say fixation, or people start sliding towards planning. So when people are feeling that low, most of the time they're finding a way to resist those thoughts. And so when you then say to people, let's say for instance, when we have people phone our crisis team, one of the most important questions I think in that interchange or that interaction is, how did you decide to phone me? Tell me about how you found the courage to pick up the phone and contact me in that moment. And they might say, well, I was thinking about my daughter. Tell me more about your daughter. Tell me all about your daughter. So what you're trying to do in those moments is you're trying to foreground the reasons for living so that the reasons for dying are backgrounded.
All I wanted was for someone to ask me if I was okay, and they didn't. And in that moment, I felt so alone and so isolated that I seriously contemplated self-harming, because I just wanted someone to recognize that I wasn't feeling okay.
The guaranteed way to save somebody's life is to just say, how are you? Now in England, if you say, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. So you do the twice, how are you? How are you? I'm fine. No, I mean, how are you? And you let somebody actually tell you what's going on. Once you've made that connection, you can do something to help. But the thing that saves lives is approaching and asking if they're okay.
I can imagine right now you feel like you can't talk to anyone, and you do feel really isolated and alone. And biggest part for me was I was scared of what other people were going to think about me. But I put all my trust in hoping that someone was going to ask me if I was okay. I only had one person that asked me if I was okay, and I was extremely lucky that they did ask me. If I could go back, I would have been completely honest with everyone and taken ownership of it, because that allowed me to become more empowered to manage it. By acknowledging it, it empowers you to take ownership of it, and by being honest with yourself but with other people that there is something wrong, that will allow you to get help.
If you broke your leg, you wouldn't assume, oh, I can't go and talk to someone about this, or you wouldn't assume that you need to fix it yourself. You hand it over to professionals, and that's the same with your mental health. They're there to help you, and they're there to care for you. That's what makes them so good at their job. It's not easy, because to you, it might make it feel all that more sense real, but it's a good thing that it feels real, because it means if it's real, there's something that can be done.
It released a lot of pressure, all that weight that you have on your shoulders talking to someone. It sort of did for me, like speaking to someone new, like my therapist, like trying something completely different. It opened a lot of doors and made me sort of listening to my own voice, like how weird it sounded and the things that I was doing and went through.
How do I overcome all of this? It's never going to get any better. But I've been through it. I know how it feels, and I can promise you it's going to get better. And my number one tip to really getting over all of this, it's to find something that you love doing. Sing until your voice is golden. Do the best that you can do in something you love. That will put your focus away from the hardships that you go through, and it will make you so much better, because you have something completely different to focus on. You have something to be happy for. You have something that makes sense to you.
The people like the things you do. The people like when you are yourself. And if you sell people yourself, they will expect that. It's nobody in this world who can be the one person you are.
I learned to be grateful. Really, to be grateful of all the things that are good in my life. I don't really know that much, and that's the whole point. And that's the whole point of searching to learn all the time. There's a lot more joy in giving than in receiving, and also embracing what I want. These are things that I apply in my life today.
You can find the links to their full interviews below in the description, or you could go into thehumanaspect.com and simply search their names.